are the different wheat berries that we use. This is soft white wheat berries. This can be used for your pastries, your biscuits, cakes, cookies, and things like that. This is your hard white wheat berries, hard red wheat berries. These are what you use for your yeast breads. So I use both of these for the sandwich breads that we make using commercial yeast. I use the hard white wheat berries. I grind this up and then I use that for my sourdough starter and my sourdough breads. And then this is your rye wheat berries. I will use this in my sourdough rye bread. But these are the different wheat berries that we particularly use in our house. I use these two buckets the most, the hard red and the hard white. So I do a lot of yeast breads, both sourdough and commercial yeast. We also do things like muffins. I'll use just the hard red wheat berries for the muffins, our breakfast muffins. We've done both chocolate chip muffins, banana muffins, mixed berry muffins, so they are all good. And then my daughter loves to do sourdough pancakes every morning, and she'll just use the sourdough starter discard, which was made from the hard white wheat berries, and she'll do her chocolate chip pancakes. From the sourdough bread, we can do croutons, and we've also done sourdough crackers, but this is what we use. So we are going to grind the wheat berries so that we can get the flour that we need in order to get our dough started. I'm going to take 2 cups hard red wheat berries, 1 cup hard white wheat berries, my 3 cups total. And I'm going to turn the mill on, let it grind into the flour. Whenever it's done, you'll hear the pitch on the machine go up, and then we'll turn it off and I'll show you the flour. You don't want to disconnect this tube until the machine is completely silent, or else you'll have flour blow out all over the kitchen, which I have done. And there is your flour compared to your wheat berries. Didn't take long at all. Okay, so we are ready to go ahead and mix our dough. We are going to use 1.5 cups hot water, a 1/3 cup. I use extra light olive oil. My family doesn't really like the extra virgin olive oil taste in this bread, so I use the extra light tasting olive oil. And then the raw unfiltered honey. Again, 1.5 cups hot water, 1/3 cup olive oil, 1/3 cup raw unfiltered honey. We'll do 1 tablespoon of yeast and 4.5 cups of fresh milled flour and 2 teaspoons of Redmond's Real Salt sea salt. So we'll go ahead and get started. Here's the 1.5 cups hot water. Hot water does kill the yeast, but the method that I use, I'm adding the hot water. I'm gonna add the salt, mix it in so it dissolves real good. I'll add the oil, the honey, Again, mix it one more time, and then I will add 3 cups of the flour. That will bring the temperature down enough to where I can go ahead and add the yeast and it will not kill the yeast. So here we go. 1.5 cups hot water, 2 teaspoons Redmond's real salt sea salt, fine salt. Mix it up, that way it dissolves the salt. Third cup olive oil. And if you use this particular recipe, do the oil first. Whenever you do the oil first, then add the honey. The honey will actually slide right out of the measuring cup. And it came out clean. Mix those ingredients together. That way everything gets well distributed. Turn my machine on, and I will use the setting 2 on this KitchenAid mixer. I'm going to add 3 cups of the flour. And now I'm going to add my tablespoon of the active dry yeast. All of those ingredients brought the temperature down enough so it will not kill the yeast. And now I'm going to add the remaining flour. And you want this to mix. The way that you know that you have added enough flour is that the flour will start pulling away from the sides. Right now, with the temperature and the humidity, I actually add all 4.5 cups of flour. And I'm going to let this mix 10 minutes. It takes 10 to 12 minutes. So my dough is done mixing. You can tell that it is done mixing because it's completely pulled away from the sides. When I touch it, it's a little sticky, but it doesn't come off on my hand. You can also do the window pane test. And I'm going to go ahead and get this dough off of the hook. I just scrape it off. To do the window pane test, I'm just wetting my hands so that the dough will not stick to my hands. I'm going to pull this up, and I'm stretching the dough to where you can actually see the shadow of my finger behind the dough. And that lets you know that the dough is stretchy enough and it is ready. Now it's ready for the first rise. Here it is. And it will rise until double. That'll take about an hour. But I have to get a little bit of oil down on the bottom. That way it won't dry out. put a little bit of oil in the bottom of the bowl. Stick it in there. I'm going to roll it around, let it get good and coated. That way the dough won't dry out during the rising process. And then you can cover it with a clean towel and let it rise for an hour or until double. After the first rise is complete, we are going to loosen the dough from the sides of the bowl. Transfer it to the counter. This is the dry side. This is the wet side, and I leave the wet side down on the counter. I'm going to stretch it out just a little bit, punch it down. As you're working the dough, you do not want the dough to be longer than your pan. Worked out most of the air, so now I'm just going to flatten it slightly into a rectangle. I'm going to go ahead, grease my pan, and now I'm going to roll this. And I am just rolling it up, tucking as I roll. And then at the very end, to seal the seams, I pull it too. And then pull it too. It's going to fit perfectly into the pan. There you go. The final thing that we will do before we put it into the oven, before it does the final rise, we're going to get a little bit of oil. Just coat the top. This will keep it from drying out. Now we're going to set it to the side and let it rise until double, and that should take about an hour total. So this bread has been shaped and placed in the loaf pan. Now it needs to go through the final rise in a draft-free environment. There's multiple different ways that you can do that. Some people have just taken a cloth and laid it over in order to let it go through the final rise. I've just taken one of my bread bags and put it in there so that it's a draft-free environment. You can also use unused shower caps to put over the container so that it can go through the final rise, or you can place it in the oven, the unheated oven, to go through the final rise process. After you mix all of your ingredients and the commercial yeast, the dough will go through its first rise. So this is after it has risen for about an hour. This is the first rise. Then you roll it out, shape it into your loaf pan, and then this is after the second rise. Then it will go into the oven and it will bake on 350 for 35 minutes, and then this is the final product. So this dough is ready. It has completed the second rise, and with the heat and humidity that's in here, it didn't take quite an hour. So it's been about 55 minutes at this point, but we're gonna go ahead and get it into the oven. My oven is on 350. There it is. We're gonna let it cook 350, 35 minutes.